Sånn, der er den.
Er det noe toalett i nærheten?
Ja, det er inn og rundt hjørnet der. All right. Da lar vi Austin få lov til å begynne, og kanskje du har lyst til å kommentere de andre litt. Og du kan begynne debatten, og så er egentlig ordet fritt mellom spesielt...
I don't know how much of a debate there's going to be, but we all seem pretty much agree. I'm the acting chairman for Republicans Abroad. My normal tasks as... I'm the acting chairman for Republicans Abroad. I'm not the elected chairman, or... Can you hear me? I'm the acting chairman for Republicans Abroad, not the elected chairman. The current chairman's on maternity leave. My normal tasks are as communications officer, but I'm also central styremedlem on Liberalistene as well with Roald and Harold, which in fact is far more of my party than the Republican Party has ever been. This is certainly an interesting election year, as we see. And Trump, I should give a disclaimer, was never at the top of my list in the primary elections. Rand Paul was my primary choice. But, and so I do face kind of a dilemma here. In fact, I brought, if anybody's interested in seeing it, I just received my ballot. And I still need to fill that out. But if anybody's interested in it, just say so and you can take a look. So for me, with the election right now, I would like to vote for Gary Johnson, not because I actually like him as a libertarian, but in a state where I have to vote, he was the governor, and I have a profound respect for him as a Republican. I think he has phenomenal growth to do as a libertarian, but of the three options they had in that party, he was certainly the more pragmatic choice. And the dilemma that I face is New Mexico can tend to be a swing state. That's where I studied, which is why I have to vote there. It was my last state of residence. It's not my home state.
What's your home state?
Originally I'm from Alaska, but I grew up in both Alaska and in Arizona. But my home state is Alaska. So the issue is New Mexico can be a swing state. It tends to be blue, but it can be a swing state. They only have 5 electoral votes in the Electoral College, and depending on the day we're looking at the polls and which poll you're looking at, it can go either way. So if it is so tight when it comes time to fill this out, then I will vote for Trump. This has become an election for me as a Republican, not so much now who I support as a Republican, but it's who I'm abhorrently against in the Democrats. I think Hillary Clinton is not only going to be dangerous for the United States, but I think she'll be dangerous in foreign policy interests and for the world at large. If the polls look like they're going to go towards Hillary Clinton in that state anyways, then I would like to support the Libertarian Party, only because I would like to see the Libertarian Party come more onto the main stage. So that gives me an idea of where I stand politically and where I stand in this election.
I think we have to ask you, since you're here, a couple of questions regarding the Republican Party and Paul Ryan and Newt Gingrich and all those guys. How would you describe that scenario at the moment?
Well, I think so. Paul Ryan, I'm very disappointed in, and it's the direction actually he's gone in, the development that's happened over the last few years with Paul Ryan and when he became Speaker of the House. He sort of meshed into the fabric of the establishment of the Republican Party when at one time before he got there, he was viewed as someone that could be a star in the party, as someone who could represent a new class of voters within the party, and he had a lot of promise. But what I often say when people ask me, what do I think about Trump and what he's done to the party, I don't think Trump has done anything to the party. I think Trump is a result of something that was already existing in the party, something that was a long time coming. There are a lot of Republicans that are voting for Trump, not because they even like him, not because they even like his policies. Trump and Hillary Clinton actually have a lot more in common policy-wise than people realize. But they're voting for him because he represents the burning down of the establishment house. He represents everything that isn't politically correct, and people are exhausted of the establishment. Yeah, bringing it on the house. So I think he represents a long-standing divide, which arguably started back in around 2008, 2009 with the Tea Party movement, and was only only festered with Obamacare, and that is a core part of this divide.
A core question. Newt Gingrich is said to, if you want to put the monkey on somebody's back, and they talk about Newt Gingrich and the way he behaved 10 years before in the early mid-90s, where he felt that Newt is a very intelligent guy, but he has some strange strategies from time to time, one could argue. And the thing was that he wanted to stir up noise in the 90s. And that's why he came with this woman that Clinton had had sex with, all that stuff, and he was the impeachment guy and all that stuff. You remember?
Yeah. Well,
and that was a strategy.
I was only a boy then, but I'm very familiar
from
with
the books.
Yeah.
So Newt Gingrich is a guy that must bear some responsibility for this development, for breaking up in a way the Republican Party.
In a way, yeah. I mean, if you're going to look at it in the sense of denying etiquette in the way that it was, I mean, what I often say when it comes to Bill Clinton is that I had no care in the world for what he did in the Oval Office. The reason I think Newt Gingrich and the House at the time were in the right was because he did commit perjury. Bill Clinton did violate the law, which is a lot of the problem we're looking at with Hillary Clinton. And Bill Clinton ended up getting away with it because he missed by one vote in the Senate. And now we're looking at the same thing with Hillary Clinton, but on steroids. I mean, Hillary Clinton flat out broke the law. And she admitted to it. It's based on her own admission when it came to handling of classified information. Whether there was intent is irrelevant. It doesn't matter whether it was a C on the paper or a TS, SCI on the paper. It doesn't matter the classification level. She broke the law. And if you look at the letter of this law that she broke, if you look at it in black and white terms, intent is irrelevant, first of all. It's the action itself. If you look at the letter of the law, in this case, she is disqualified from pursuing public office, let alone running for the presidency of the United States. And so I think, again, when we look at the polls and we look how the media portrays this election, whether it's in Norway or in the United States, obviously I'm pretty sure all of us here can agree there's a heavy left-wing bias. And on a normal day, that's very frustrating. On a normal day, it's very frustrating. But I actually think as we get closer to the election, this bias is actually going to propel the chances of Donald Trump. We've seen this both in 2008 and in 2012 when you had a lot of Republicans who were out championing the Republican Party and championing the candidates saying, we got this in the bag. We're going to win. And because of that, so many people that would have otherwise turned out to vote, who have jobs, who have families to tend to, it's like, okay, we've got this in the bag. I don't need to go to the polls today. And that was happening en masse. Now we look at it today, and the media is portraying Trump, and even Republicans are portraying Trump as that he doesn't have a chance in hell. So they're going to come out. And these poll numbers where you look, doesn't matter which poll, and you see where Hillary's, people are going to come out because they're pissed off. They're going to come out, they're going to turn out at the polls, and that's important. So on a normal day, I'd be very frustrated and very, very angry with how the media conducts itself. But right now, in the last few weeks leading up to the election, I say, go for it. Keep doing it.
Last question for me for a while. The funny name guy who is the head of the Republican Party, what's his name again?
Ryan Priebus?
Yeah, he is invisible in this whole thing.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because Trump isn't only anti-Clinton establishment, he's been anti-Republican establishment.
What does he say?
Ryan Priebus?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think he has a whole lot of public standing as far as Trump goes. He stayed pretty quiet. Now, don't get me wrong, when something happens like these the locker room talk recordings and things like that come out, you do have these higher-ups in the Republican Party that come and say, we can't stand by this. And on that note, when you had a lot of these Republicans that were pulling their support or pulling their endorsements, or like Paul Ryan, who didn't pull his endorsement but said, I can't support you, left it unofficial, I think that's going to hurt them more in their local races than it's going to help their cause against Trump. But Ryan Priebus, he has to be quiet in a way, in a sense. But no matter whether Trump loses or wins, the Republican Party is certainly going to have a massive regrouping after this election. And one unique aspect about Trump is that because he is so deplored by the establishment, and this, in fact, is if you know any Americans who are on the fence, this is a good point to make to them. Trump, if he was to win the election, because he's not in the establishment's pocket, he's going to be either A, very easy to impeach if he should do something that is wrong or unconstitutional, or B, not have a chance at winning a second term. Whereas if Hillary Clinton are to win, as we've seen in the run-up to this election, it doesn't matter what she does, or how many mistakes she makes, or how many acts that are considered unconstitutional, whether legally or in the public eye, it doesn't matter what she does, there is no chance that she's going to be leaving that office when she gets there.
Good point. Can I ask, I'm afraid that it's possible that this can turn violent. Either way, actually, no matter who wins this. Any reflections on whether anger can be legitimate or any even violence can be, it says in the Constitution, right, to protect the country from enemies, foreign and domestic. So it's a torch to throw out there, but I'd like some thoughts about that because it's not being discussed.
What does, you are really interesting to listen to. What does Ted Cruz and the Bush family do these days? Are they totally passive or Ted Cruz is a real outspoken kind of guy. What does he do?
Well, Ted Cruz...
It has relevance to what you are saying, but I'll explain why afterwards.
Well, Ted Cruz did give his support to Trump eventually, reluctantly.
Yeah, but he still does.
Yeah, reluctantly. But the
Still
Bush
does.
still does. I don't recall that he's removed his
Rubio
support.
removed himself.
Rubio did remove himself.
Yeah.
As far as the Bush family goes, the way that we see it in the public eye is that they support Hillary Clinton. George Bush hasn't. The second hasn't said anything, and they've stayed very quiet. But I think if we're going to use the rest of the family as any indicator, then I think you have your answer of why they've stayed quiet. And the fact that a former Republican president has stayed silent in an election and hasn't endorsed a Republican, that in and of itself, that silence speaks volumes.
Yeah, the Bush family is an interesting phenomenon because they're really, meshed into the military-industrial complex with Halliburton and Schlumberger and all those guys, and are really part of, U.S. oil and U.S. government, and it's hard for them to. They're really depending on the structure of the Republican Party and of Pentagon and of D.C. and as a whole.
And as far as your inquiry goes, I think depending on how you're going to measure it, I think we've already reached some degree of violence in the United States, and I think this election is emblematic of how polarized the United States has become, and to that there is potential for violence, I think, and now on whose side that's going to come from, that's anybody's guess. But if we watch since Trump became the nominee, and we look at where his rallies, and we look at around his rallies, and the type of people that are showing up, first of all, it's not the Republicans who become violent. It's always on the left-wing side. It's always on the left side, and it's always based on emotion. And when you ask these movements, like the Black Lives Matter, for example, they come out and they're just angry. They don't know why they're angry. They don't know what they're upset about, because it's easy if you get into a debate with someone about Black Lives Matter, say, oh, we're angry with the cops shooting the black people.